Good morning and welcome again to Teams at 10. Here we are again. So given that we've all been navigating different change events of almost biblical proportions, so fire, flood, and now plague, to name a few, and adapting and adjusting to all the transition that we've been going through, we thought it'd be really timely to discuss some specific behaviors that might help us to support our teams and ourselves as we move forward. So here at People Mastery, we use a tool called the DISC profile to help us identify our preferences. And it enables us to choose different behaviors, when the situation calls for it. And today we're going to give you a quick overview. So for some of you, it might be a bit of a refresher, and that's all good. Good to be reminded of things that we know already. And Jen is going to share with you where these behavioral tendencies come from and how you might notice them showing up in your body. And then finally, we're going to give you a few tips for managing each style. So I guess our aim for you is to be able to be more deliberate in your choice of behavior so that you can be more effective in each situation as it arises. So as you might have noticed, I've got fancy screens going on, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of color and movement with you today. So here we go, bear with me as we kind of get on top of this. Okay, so in a nutshell, the DISC profile identifies 4 predominant styles. And it's really important to note that just as each of us demonstrate all of the styles each and every day. So that said, just as we have a preference for right-handedness or left-handedness, we also have a preference for a particular style, or a cluster of behaviors, if you might like to think of it that way. And DISC is an acronym for the 4 main styles, and that is D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. And each and every style, just as human beings do, has their strengths and its limitations. And that's why we need to ensure that we choose the right behavior in the right situation. So we thought what we'd do is do a quick check-in on what style you might be. And if you know that already, let's use this little exercise to think about what style someone else might be. So all you need to do is either hold yourself or someone else in your mind, and we're going to go through a little process so you can figure out what style they might be. So here's the first set of questions you need to ask yourself. So is the person, is myself or either the person that I'm working with, are they more fast-paced and outspoken on the top or more cautious and reflective on the bottom? So just think of that person and think you're on the top or the bottom. Hold that answer in your mind. Step 2, here's the next set of questions. Is that person or yourself, are you more questioning and skeptical on the left, or are you more accepting and warm on the right? So we're going to put those together and get some little combinations. So here we go. So if you happen to think that you were fast-paced and outspoken and questioning and skeptical, you'll probably have a preference for the D style, okay, the dominance. If you're fast-paced and outspoken, accepting and warm, you might be like me. You might have the preference for the I style. If you're cautious and reflective, accepting and warm, you might be more like Jen. Jen is one of the S styles. And if you're cautious and reflective, questioning and skeptical, you might be more of the C style. So again, you can think of that for yourself and for others. And I guess, the thing is, in times of change and transition, as leaders, we're really often called upon to support our people and engage with them on the journey. And whilst being really clear on the direction, which is sort of the domain of D, and having evidence to back our decisions, which is more where the C comes from, is important, it's likely to be the more collaborative people styles of I and S that will serve you best, depending, of course, on the situation and the people that you're dealing with. So before we kind of give you some tips about how you might work more effectively with those styles, I just want to hand over to Jen, who's going to share with us where those behavioral tendencies come from in the first place and how we might notice them showing up. So over to you, Jen.
All right, thanks, Anna. I remember a standout article I read back in 2010 that spoke about the key to exemplary leadership as being a leader who could read the environment and flexibly shift leadership behaviors to best serve the needs of the moment. For example, that might require more decisive and bold style, like a D in one situation, and it could mean leading from the back, listening and empowering others in another situation, maybe more like the S style. And we can see from what Anna's taken us through with DISC that DISC provides a useful framework for identifying our preferences and developing that flexibility. So where do our preferences come from in the first place? It's generally a bit of nature and nurture. So in our early formative years, we very intelligently use the billions of years of evolutionary wisdom built into us, nature, to adapt to our surroundings and to the people who we depend upon for our survival. And this development's intimately connected to our autonomic nervous system. And we can see it when we're under pressure. We have a sort of automatic style that reflexively comes forward. Strozzi Heckler refers to this as our conditioned tendency. And you might think of the fight or flight response. The nurture part is that from the time we're born, we observe and absorb the role modeling behaviors of our family members, friends, teachers, institutions, etc. And we get constant feedback about how we're fitting in. And when we're in our formative years, our behaviors are all about that fitting in, belonging, having protection, and being loved. So fast forward to being an adult, and those conditioned tendencies that were intelligent and served us very well as young people might now be habitual and holding us back in our development as leaders if they're operating automatically and are invisible to us. So I once coached a rather bombastic, dominant style leader, and her approach worked some of the time, but her abrasiveness was putting people off and her team was underperforming. So we explored her CT, conditioned tendency, and she remembered how in her family of origin, everyone around the dinner table was expected to have an opinion and to fiercely debate it. So she was raised to be a fiery fighter. And that training put her in good stead and took her a long way, to be sure. But being a one-trick pony doesn't work for leaders in the long run. I also coached a leader who was struggling to call out bad behavior. And while exploring the barrier to her developing her assertiveness, she realized in her family, children were to be seen, not heard. And when she expressed opinions, she was really shot down. So we can think about our preferences and reflect on past experiences to identify them, like in the examples here, or we can observe how we move under pressure when we're being sort of grabbed by life. And doing that helps us to identify whether we habitually move into fight mode or flight mode when challenged or caught off guard. And once we know that, why do we want to know that? Because it gives us a lot more choice. So here's an example. Imagine somebody comes up to you out of the blue and says, hey, the boss wants to see you in her office now. Some of us will feel the blood rush to our face, our jaws and our fists might clench, and we want to get right in there and straighten things out, win the fight, however small or large it might be. Other of us feel the blood drain out of our face, feel our chest shrink as we draw backward for safety. Maybe we hold our breath and need a moment or two to think things through, flight, before we go into the boss's office to hopefully set things right. So our suggestion is take some time this week to observe how your nervous system reflexively reacts under pressure and see if you can identify a pattern. Do you move against, fight? Do you move away, flight? Or sometimes people move toward, which is automatically getting overly friendly and really super mergy to seek safety. We might find that in an I. And once you know the pattern, you can more effectively start to train yourself to recenter yourself. So you have a choice about how you'll act to best serve the needs of your team in the moment. And this is what it looks like to develop leadership presence. That's it. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Jen. So great to know where this comes from. How do we end up being who we are at the moment, right? So let's finish off with a few tips. Again, we're kind of doing DISC in a very tight nutshell today about, so if you've realized that maybe some of your team members, or it could be your family members, as Jen said, have got these particular preferences for behavior, what can you do to be more effective with them? So I'm going to take you through D and I, and Jen's going to take you through S and C. So we're just going to work around the clock face. So with D, I'm just going to show you one more little slide to finish us off. Here it is. With the D style, there's a bit of extra information on here for, those who want to get the gold star, around control and affiliation. But really the D focus is all about results. D wants to get stuff done. So when you're working with D style, be really clear on what you're doing and how that contributes to the results that they're trying to achieve. Clear direction, cut to the chase. They don't want any of this fluff. And be really objective. That's what they're after. So a couple of tips for D. Moving to the I style, again, they're both high pace styles, so that you need to move quite quickly with both D and I. Focus on the positives. As you can see, the key focus is enthusiasm. So bring your energy, make it fun, ask for their opinion. As you would notice with me, I always have an opinion on something. So ask for their opinion and you're more likely to engage with them effectively. So we're going to go below the line now over to S and C. Over to you, Jen, for S.
Yes, okay, with S's, focus on your relationship with the person. Give them time to think things through and work with them to find solutions. And if there are any transitions happening, explain what that'll mean for them and their team. With C's, focus on your facts and evidence. They really like those. Make sure that you have them correct too. And give them advance notice about things. Listen to their research. And think that ultimately as a leader, you need to be like a chameleon, able to adapt for each person and each situation. So that flexibility to move all around the dial of DISC. Know your style and develop your ability to come back to center. And know how you can flex and be effective with every person you work with, not just the ones who share your style preference. And yes, don't be a one-trick pony. That doesn't work in the long run as a leader.
Absolutely. As Jen said, so we're going to leave the one-trick pony behind and we're going to grab the chameleon and we're going to do lots of adapting. So one of the things that just to finish off is around, there's a phrase that a lot of us have grown up with, and it's treat others the way that you want to be treated, which actually is doing us all a disservice. So the important thing is to think about, what do other people need and how can we treat them the way that they want to be treated? So when we understand their preferences for behavior, then we can move towards them and meet them where they are at. So we've kind of gone over into question time. Kirsty, have we got any questions lurking?
We do have one, Anna.
Ooh, awesome.
We had someone asking, I work closely with someone who seems to exhibit all of those characteristics at times. Any advice on how I approach that person or how I figure out what their style is?
Yeah, right. Great. Good question. I know Jen and I both going to have something to say on that one. I think the thing is, we are all of the styles. That's the whole thing. We are the chameleon. It's not an ability profile. We can demonstrate all of these styles every single day. Just watch today and see what happens. The only thing you need to know is really, how is that person showing up in this situation with me in this moment, right? How are they showing up right now? Because you'll be able to kind of distill it a little bit more. So maybe they're in the middle of an audit meeting and they're channeling their C style, or maybe they're doing a town hall meeting with a cast of thousands and they're more channeling the I style. So just think about this one situation. The fact that you don't know their preference style doesn't even matter. Just how are they showing up today? So that's something to look out for. Jen, over to you.
Yeah, I was just reflecting that when I did my certification training for DISC, I remember the person doing the training said something that really stuck with me, which is, this is not a diagnosis, it's a conversation starter. So it's really just about awakening us to thinking about, what the different behaviors that we have, that we interact with, and how we can be most effective with that. It's not about putting people in boxes.
Exactly. Nice one. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I guess the other thing, one last thing I'll just add on is that, if you think, oh, I think they're I, and you try that and it doesn't seem to work, just try another style. You can keep this there's more than 4, but we're giving you the little overview today. Just try another style and notice what works. So drop into reflection. That worked, that didn't work. What can I do more of, less of? So again, pay attention to how you're behaving and the reactions that you get through reflection. Reflection gets another Guernsey. So thanks again for joining us. Wishing you a good week ahead, and look forward to catching up with you again next week. Take care for now.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.